Episode 3 of All of Us Are Dead returns to the police station, where Byung-chan admits to starting this viral outbreak. While he talks to Jae-ik, we cut across to Hee-soo, who has problems of her own. After leaving the school with an upset stomach, we saw her last episode with water dribbling down her legs. Now, it turns out she was actually pregnant and gives birth in a public bathroom on her own. Cheong-san, however, survives his tumble off the balcony. He clings on for dear life to the hosepipe, but one of the infected grips his leg. Soo Hye-ok manages to come over and help though, acrobatically diving and managing to grab the hose. It's miraculous that this thing hasn't broken, and it's a pretty ludicrous moment in truth. The infection soon begins to spread across town though, with Hee-soo forced to evade the zombies while holding onto her babe. She also narrowly misses, being hit with a police car too, which is filmed by bystanders. The same bystanders who uploaded onto Facebook and allow our kids in the broadcasting room to see take place. It's a neat way of moving the action back to the broadcasting room. Eventually all the kids reconvene, where tensions break out between Na-yeon and Jae-soo. After thwarting an infected, Soo Hye-ok accidentally knocks Jae-soo in the nose. The thing is, this causes the others to believe he's infected. Na-yeon is the ringleader in this, but she refuses to apologize when it turns out he's okay. Na-yeon presses on, believing the scratch on his hand was a result of the infected. In order to get to the bottom of this, Sun-hwa makes a big decision and decides he should stay in the recording room. At least for 30 minutes anyway, to see if anything changes. Gwynam is still alive too and uses every resource he can to make it to safety. While this is happening, Cheong-san's mother notices the news about Hyacinth and grabs the nearby bike and races to the school. An-jo's father meanwhile sees the infection firsthand after being called to the office building, where one of the infected is tied to a chair. As the infection grows worse, police mobilize in the streets and prepare to fight back the hordes. This also means Cheon-san's mom is forced to take a risky path through the back alleys. And out of all the people she could run into, it's Hee-sun. She's still cradling her baby and rushes away, leaving the woman alone to face a rabble of zombies chasing after her. Hee-sun takes a turn for the worst. She's infected and wanting to protect her child, she ties knots on the door to herself to try and stop the zombies from getting to the baby and to stop herself from doing something awful. Back in school, Jae-soo ends up sulking and refuses to come out from the recording room. In order to solve matters, Sun-hwa and the kids suggest Na-yeon be the one to go in and speak to him. Only, this just makes matters worse. Jae-soo soon begins bleeding from the nose when he's let out, and it seems like Na-yeon was right after all. With a shaky voice, Jae-soo decides to leave on his own accord and do the right thing. Just before he turns, Jae-soo experiences some frightening visions. Cheong-san manages to distract him by whistling their favorite tune together, which sees him dive out the window and join the rest of the horde. The thing is, Na-yeon actually wiped infected blood from the broom used earlier on to fend off the infected. She then used that to infect Jae-soo's wound. Nam-ri saw the whole thing, and the group turn on her. It doesn't take long for Na-yeon to admit to everything. Na-yeon eventually leaves, sobbing, claiming she has no friends. In her absence, Sun-hwa sternly tells the other kids not to take another life. In doing so, that makes life itself meaningless. After her speech, she heads outside to try and save Na-yeon. Grabbing her hand, they hurry away from the horde, leaving the kids on their own. But not for long, a helicopter shows up which could prove to be their salvation. Episode 4 of All of Us Are Dead begins with an influencer on their way to Hyacinth. He wants to figure out if the infection is really as bad as everyone is saying it is. Armed with a whole stack of survival gear, he heads into the heart of town and tries to find a safe place to hide. While the helicopter closes in on the school, Cheong-san's mother manages to escape the horde nearby and limps toward the school herself. Unfortunately, she recognizes Jae-soo and calls out for him. But of course, in doing so, he's infected, so that's a bad move. And it leads to her surrounded and killed for her efforts. Yoon-jae is still up on the roof of the school, alongside Cheol-soo. Both of them embrace the carnages going on below, wanting to kill those inside the school who have wronged them. The difference here, though, is that Cheol-soo wants to live, while Yoon-jae is still flirting with suicidal tendencies. Inside the broadcasting room, the kids hold tight and come up with a solution for their bathroom woes. It may be a while before rescuers arrive. Like father like daughter, An-jo and her dad both organize traffic and arrange for their respective groups to hunker down and wait for rescue. Gwynam is still fighting too, and he manages to survive by slaughtering more of the infected. Another rabble of survivors happened to be held up in the girls' bathroom. We saw glimmers of this last episode, but here we see things kick off when Min Jae and Mi Jin fight. Back in the police station, Byung Chan is completely nonchalant to what's happening outside. He sees it as a triumph of the weak fighting back against the strong. He's been well aware of his son being bullied, but the heartbreaking way the school dealt with this, claiming it was just kids fooling around and how he should be a team player, pushed him into a corner. Jin Soo's bullying got completely out of hand and moving classes just made things worse. Believing he's living in a system of assault, Byung Chan took the bold decision to infect his own son in the hopes of helping him fight back. Only, he created a monster in the process. The interview soon comes to an unceremonious end when the zombie infection spreads across to the police station. Jae-ik fights them back as best he can, but he ends up infected. Byung Chan saves the detective's life, letting Jae-ik escape, but becomes infected in the process. The thing is, Byung Chan doesn't appear to be like the other infected. He seems more sentient, able to walk calmly through the hallways. Before he was turned, he told Jae-ik about his laptop, which could hold crucial clues to stopping this infection. With this knowledge, Jae-ik heads to Hyasun High School. At the school, Cheong-san and An-jo watch as a whole bunch of helicopters begin flying into town. An-jo wants to try and get their attention. Nam-rai, however, brings up a far more pressing problem: dehydration. Although they've sorted their bathroom woes out, they haven't got any water or food, which is obviously a big problem. In order to try and find a solution, the kids decide they need to get to the teacher's office. Specifically, they need to find a phone to figure out what's going on. That's problematic though, because up on the roof, Yoon-jae makes a bold decision to find Gwynam's phone no matter what. The video Gwynam took of her during episode 1 was actually scheduled to go live at 9 a.m. That time has now passed, and because Cheol-soo has been unable to pay him, thanks to the little complication of a zombie outbreak, their time is up. So Yoon-jae heads for the teacher's lounge. Yoon-jae is infected by the zombies on the way down. Unbeknownst to her, that's the reason the infected have stopped biting. Anyway, she does manage to make it into the office, but so too do Cheong-san and Soo Hye-ok. Unfortunately, Yoon-jae smashes up most of the phones. In their eagerness to find a working phone, Cheong-san and Soo Hye-ok end up separated as they try to evade the zombies. Over in the office building, An-jo's father manages to hold off the oncoming horde thanks to a hose and some ingenuity. While the congresswoman and the others scramble up the stairs, the firemen are left to hold several doors shut and use the hose to fend off the zombies. With the door upstairs to the roof locked, An-jo's dad is left alone to try and hold them all off and buy the group precious time to escape. The group manage to escape, but for An-jo's father, it seems like he may be infected. The zombies are nowhere to be found, and he's left breathing heavily as they all make it to the rooftop. Throwing a signal flare, the helicopters nearby fast approach. Meanwhile, Cheong-san finds himself in the principal's office with Gwynam, who ties up the principal and prepares to kill him. With Cheong-san filming, he watches in shock as Gwynam slashes the man's throat and murders him. Cheong-san grabs the phone and rushes to safety, leaving the bully stalking through the hallways after him. As he throws his knife, whistling through the air, it hits Cheong-san right in the spine.